Sometimes, the person who promises forever is the one who leaves you shattered in a single moment. Part 1. The perfect illusion. I used to believe that love was simple, that if two people were meant to be, nothing could shake their bond. I believed that with every fiber of my being. That belief led me to say yes when he proposed, certain that our future was secure and beautiful. But nothing could have prepared me for the truth that shattered that illusion on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. From the moment we met, Jason seemed like the perfect man. Charming, attentive, ambitious. He was everything I'd ever wanted. Our relationship moved quickly, but it felt right. Friends envied our love story, and family was already planning the wedding before I even realized how deeply I had fallen. We spent countless nights dreaming about our life together. The house, the children, the trips we would take. Jason had a way of making me feel like I was the only person in the world that mattered. I told myself I had found the one, but beneath the sparkle of the engagement ring and the perfect Instagram pictures, cracks had started to form. Little things at first. Missed calls, vague explanations, late nights out, with work. I pushed my doubts aside, blaming my insecurities and trusting that Jason loved me as much as I loved him. The planning for the wedding was a whirlwind. Invitations went out, dresses were fitted, and venues booked. Every detail was perfect, just like Jason promised. I smiled at the thought that soon we would be husband and wife. Then came the morning of the wedding. As I sat in the bridal suite, surrounded by laughter and excitement, my phone buzzed with a message that froze my blood. It was from an unknown number. A photo of Jason, not in a suit but with someone else, someone clearly not me. The caption read simply, "He's not who you think he is." My heart plummeted. I stared at the screen, disbelief and terror swirling inside me. How long had this been going on? How many lies had I swallowed? Panic clawed at my throat as I frantically tried to reach Jason, but his phone went straight to voicemail. When the ceremony was about to start, I was a mess. I told my best friend what I'd seen, my voice shaking. She urged me to confront him, to demand the truth. But what could I say at the altar, with everyone watching? The moments ticked by painfully slow as I wrestled with my decision. Then, as Jason stood at the altar waiting for me, I felt the ground shift beneath me. The man I thought I knew was a stranger, and I had to decide if I would let him break me or fight to reclaim my life. Part 2. The confrontation. The chapel was filled with the murmur of guests, the faint scent of flowers lingering in the air, and the soft, distant notes of a string quartet tuning up for the ceremony. All eyes were on me, waiting for that moment I had dreamt of for years. The walk down the aisle, the promises whispered beneath the vaulted ceilings. But something inside me had shifted, like an earthquake beneath a fragile surface, threatening to collapse the entire world I thought I had built. My heart pounded so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. I glanced toward the altar where Jason stood, the man I was supposed to marry in just minutes. He looked perfect, dressed in a tailored suit that accentuated broad shoulders and a confident stance. His eyes shone with something I thought was love. But now, those same eyes held confusion and a flicker of fear. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. The message on my phone was still fresh in my mind. The photo, the betrayal. That unknown number with its silent accusation haunted me. How long had this been going on? How many times had I been lied to while smiling and making plans for a future that wasn't real? I couldn't lie to myself anymore. The weight of the truth pressed down on me like an iron chain. "I can't do this," I said, voice breaking as I stepped into the aisle, every eye turning toward me. A collective gasp filled the room, the air thick with shock and disbelief. Jason's face paled. "What? Why? What are you talking about?" I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the flood of tears. "I saw the messages, the pictures. You've been lying to me, hiding things from me all this time." The murmurs grew louder, whispers racing through the crowd like wildfire. My closest friends exchanged worried looks. My parents sat frozen, their faces etched with confusion and pain. Jason stepped forward, his voice low but trembling. "It's not what you think. I swear there's more to it." "Then tell me," I cried, "because from where I stand, it looks like everything you promised was a lie." He hesitated, eyes flicking to the floor. "Please, just listen." But the damage was done. The perfect illusion was shattered, replaced by raw, unbearable reality. I turned and fled to the bridal suite, my steps echoing through the hall like the beating of a retreating heart. Behind the closed door, I sank to the floor, the sobs racking my body uncontrollably. The man I thought would be my forever had turned into a stranger in an instant. Minutes later, Jason was there too, knocking softly, voice filled with desperation. "Please, let me explain." But I wasn't ready. How could I be? The hours passed in a blur of tears, confusion, and shattered dreams. My phone buzzed relentlessly with messages. Friends asking if I was okay, family pleading for answers, Jason begging for forgiveness. I realized then that the hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself, but the choice that lay before me, to stay and face the painful truth, or to walk away and try to salvage what little remained of my heart. Part 3. The truth revealed. The night after the wedding day disaster felt like a storm had taken over my entire life. I barely slept. My mind was a battlefield of hurt, confusion, and desperate questions. Why would Jason betray me? How long had this been going on? And most painfully, did he ever really love me? Morning came sluggishly, the soft light filtering through the curtains failing to soothe the turmoil inside me. My phone buzzed again, Jason's name flashing on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. His voice was heavy with regret. "Please, meet me. I need to explain everything." Something inside me, some fragile thread of hope, urged me to listen. Maybe, just maybe, there was a reason behind the lies. We met at a quiet cafe, away from the prying eyes and whispers. He looked tired, worn, his usual confident smile replaced by a haunted expression. "I owe you the truth," he began, voice barely above a whisper. "Years ago, before I met you, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. There was a woman, someone from my past who refused to let go. She threatened to destroy me if I didn't keep quiet." I listened, heart pounding as he laid out the tangled web of threats, lies, and fear. The photos I'd seen were from encounters long before I existed in his life, but the shadow of that past still loomed over him. "I was scared," Jason admitted. "I thought if you knew, you'd leave me. I was trying to protect you. And us." Tears burned my eyes. The pain of betrayal mixed with the desire to believe him. Could love survive such a secret? But the damage ran deep. I asked myself, how many other secrets were buried beneath his words? How could I rebuild trust when the foundation felt cracked? We talked for hours, unraveling years of lies and half-truths. And while I wanted to believe in us, the ache in my chest reminded me that forgiveness wouldn't come easily. That day, I faced a crossroads, to hold on to a love that had broken me or to let go and find strength in my own. Part 4. Picking up the pieces. The days that followed the truth's revelation were the loneliest I had ever known. The vibrant world I once inhabited was reduced to shades of grey, a silent reminder that love, no matter how deep, could be fragile beyond repair. I stayed in my apartment, the walls closing in as memories replayed endlessly in my mind. Laughter shared over dinner, whispered promises late at night, the way Jason's hand used to feel perfectly fitting in mine. Now those moments seemed like fragments of a dream I was desperate to wake from. Friends reached out, their texts filled with support and encouragement. Some urged me to forgive, others to move on. But no advice could touch the raw pain, the gnawing emptiness left behind by broken trust. Therapy became a lifeline. In the sterile, calming room, I began untangling the complicated mess inside me. I learned that betrayal didn't just break hearts, it shattered identity. Who was I if the person I loved most had deceived me? How could I trust again when the foundation of my world was cracked? Work became my refuge. Immersing myself in projects, deadlines, and meetings, I tried to reclaim the parts of me that felt lost. Colleagues noticed the change. My usual brightness dimmed, replaced by quiet determination. At night, I faced the hardest moments. The silence of my apartment echoed with memories and questions. Could Jason's past mistakes be forgiven? Was our love worth fighting for, or was it already too late? Jason called often, his voice filled with remorse, promising honesty and a chance to rebuild. But I wasn't ready to open that door. Healing was a journey I had to take alone, at my own pace. Slowly, amidst tears and self-doubt, I found pieces of myself again. I revisited old passions, painting, writing, channels to express the storm inside. I leaned on family, who stood steadfast despite their own heartbreak. One evening, As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in warm hues, I realized I was no longer drowning in sorrow. I was beginning to swim, to breathe, to live. This wasn't the ending I envisioned, but maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something new. Part 5. The decision weeks turned into months, and the weight of uncertainty hung heavily over me like a thick fog. The conversations with Jason became less frequent, more guarded. Each time his name popped up on my phone screen, a whirlwind of emotions surged. Hope, anger, longing, and fear, all fighting for dominance inside me. One chilly autumn evening, I found myself standing outside the little cafe where Jason and I first met. The memories came flooding back, sweet and bitter all at once. I remembered the way his eyes sparkled when he smiled, the gentle way he reached for my hand, the plans we made for a future that now seemed so fragile. I wondered, was that future truly lost, or could it be rebuilt from the rubble? Jason sat across from me, his expression weary but sincere. He reached out, his hand covering mine, warm and familiar. "I want to make things right," he said softly. "I don't expect forgiveness overnight, but I'm willing to fight for us." I looked into his eyes, searching for the truth beneath the apology. Could I trust him again? Could I believe in the man who had hidden so much from me? "I don't know if I can," I admitted, voice trembling. "Trust is fragile, Jason. It's not something you just fix with words." He nodded, understanding the weight of my doubt. "I know, and I'm ready to prove it one day at a time." The conversation stretched into hours, filled with honesty I hadn't heard before. He shared his fears, regrets, and hopes, laying bare the man beneath the mistakes. As I left that night, a sense of cautious hope bloomed inside me. The path ahead was uncertain and difficult, but maybe, just maybe, it was worth walking. Part 6. Rebuilding trust. Rebuilding trust is never simple. It's a slow, painstaking process, like repairing a delicate piece of glass that's shattered into countless fragments. Each piece must be carefully pieced back together, and sometimes, even the smallest crack remains visible. I learned this truth painfully as Jason and I cautiously navigated the uncharted territory of our relationship after the betrayal. In the weeks following our heartfelt conversation at the cafe, Jason made good on his promise. He became more transparent than ever before. There were no hidden texts, no unexplained absences. He shared details of his day, invited me to join his world in ways he hadn't before. But despite all his efforts, the ghost of doubt lingered in my mind like a shadow I couldn't shake. Every time my phone buzzed with an unknown notification, my heart jumped in panic. Every glance at his phone made me question reality. The pain of betrayal had left a scar that whispered lies in my ears, telling me he was still hiding something, even when he wasn't. I wrestled with my own fears and insecurities. Was I being unfair? Was I punishing him for mistakes made before we even met? Or was I simply protecting myself from being hurt again? Therapy helped me untangle these thoughts, teaching me that healing wasn't linear and forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about acceptance. Jason understood my struggle and never pressured me. He learned patience. There were days when I wanted to pull away, days when I wanted to scream and run from the pain. But there were also days when we laughed, when we touched and felt a flicker of the love that had brought us together in the first place. One evening, we sat on the worn leather couch in my living room, sharing a quiet moment. The city lights twinkled outside the window, and a soft breeze carried the scent of autumn leaves. Jason took my hand gently, his thumb tracing soothing circles over my knuckles. "I know this is hard," he said softly, "and I don't expect everything to be perfect, but I want to keep trying, for us." I squeezed his hand, feeling a fragile thread of hope weave itself through the cracks in my heart. "I want that too," I whispered, "but we have a long road ahead." As we sat there, I realized that rebuilding wasn't just about Jason proving himself to me. It was about both of us learning to trust ourselves again, learning to be vulnerable and honest, even when it scared us. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, I believed that love might just be strong enough to survive. Part 7. The Turning Point. The weeks following our quiet night on the couch were a complex mixture of progress and setbacks. Sometimes it felt like we were taking 2 steps forward, only to stumble back one. Trust, fragile as it was, began to show small signs of healing, but the scars remained raw beneath the surface. Jason's efforts never wavered. Every morning he sent me thoughtful messages, small affirmations to remind me that I was still loved. He kept his promises to be transparent and accountable, sharing his schedule and answering my questions without hesitation. I appreciated his honesty, but a part of me still struggled to let go of the lingering fear that I might wake up one day to a fresh betrayal. One evening, about 2 months after that pivotal cafe conversation, we decided to take a trip out of the city. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a quiet cabin in the woods, a place where we could breathe without the constant pressure of daily life and nosy eyes. I thought it might be good for us, a chance to reconnect without distractions. The cabin was cozy, with a fireplace that crackled softly and large windows framing the dark silhouettes of trees against the night sky. For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of peace. We spent the day hiking through crisp autumn trails, the crunch of leaves beneath our boots blending with the quiet hum of nature. That evening, after dinner, we sat by the fire with glasses of wine in hand. The flickering flames danced across Jason's face, revealing a vulnerability that melted some of my defenses. He reached for my hand, his voice low and steady. "I want to be the man you deserve," he said, his eyes searching mine. "I know I broke your heart, but I'm willing to spend every day trying to fix what I destroyed." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to feel safe in his words and actions. But the wounds were deep, and forgiveness was not a single moment. It was a process that demanded patience, understanding, and unwavering commitment from both of us. That night, as we lay side by side, I realized that the turning point wasn't just about Jason's efforts. It was about my willingness to open my heart again, to take a chance on love despite the pain. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt a cautious hope flicker inside me. Maybe love, even when shattered, could find a way to heal. Part 8. Moving forward. The last stretch of our journey was the hardest yet, a test of will, patience, and the true meaning of forgiveness. Jason and I had come so far, but the past still cast long shadows over our fragile hope. Returning from the cabin, the routine of everyday life tried to pull us back into old patterns. Doubts resurfaced, old wounds throbbed anew, and sometimes the silence between us felt heavier than words. Healing, I realized, was not a neat timeline, but a messy, ongoing battle. Yet, we kept choosing each other, every day, every moment. Small acts of kindness began to rebuild the foundation we'd shattered. Jason learned to listen without defensiveness, to admit mistakes without fear. I worked on releasing the bitterness that threatened to consume me, reminding myself that forgiveness was a gift I gave to myself as much as to him. We attended couples therapy together, a safe space where our raw emotions could surface without judgment. There, I found the strength to voice my fears, and Jason learned how to be vulnerable in ways he never had before. Our relationship didn't return to what it once was, and I realized it never could. Instead, it evolved into something new, more honest, more real, and more resilient. One evening, several months after the storm had passed, Jason and I sat on our balcony, watching the sun set in hues of gold and crimson. He took my hand and smiled softly. "Thank you for giving me a second chance," he said quietly. I smiled back, the weight of pain lifting just a little. "Thank you for fighting for us." We didn't know what the future held, but we knew one thing for sure. Love, even when broken, could grow again, stronger than before. The road was long and winding, but together we would walk it, step by step, hand in hand.